Good afternoon. Welcome to chapter 16, which is our last chapter of child psychology. This has been quite a journey. I've really enjoyed having you in this class. Um, and I hope you've really gotten something out of it and understand something about yourself and other people. Just from looking at the psychology of children, we can learn a lot about ourselves. That is assuming that that which went on in childhood and adolescence is gone to some degree to shape us who we are, or at least brought out our human nature, our individual selves that come by way of genetics and whatever belief you have about why we are the way we are. But this is really exciting as we're closing this class on this chapter, particularly because I think this is the chapter that leads us to the study of adults. Um, the first chapter in this unit on adolescence probably covered more the transition from childhood to adolescence. And what we have here with the socio-emotional coverage of adolescent psychology is more the transition from adolescence to adulthood, that which makes us who we are. So much of this psychological development in these years, in the later years of adolescence, goes to help us become the people that we need to be for the 80% of our lives that we spend as adults. As we're doing what we became, you have to become. That's the first 15 to 20%. Then you can do it and live the person that you are. Now, I don't know how old you are. If you are like 18 or 19 years old, you're in that transitional period where you become an adult. There may be many areas of your lives where you already consider yourself adults. That's good. If you're watching this and you're an adult, then you know what I'm talking about. You're living your life, but everything else is sort of to figure out how to live our lives. And so in this chapter, you're gonna read this word over and over and over, and that is the word identity. As we've been tracking Erikson's theory of socio-emotional development, in particular psychosocial development, I think that's what it's called, we'll see that identity is the culmination of the trust and autonomy and initiative and all the other things that or factors that we have been dealing with. Industry, where we just talked about industry being this is the time in early adolescence or in late childhood or middle childhood rather, that we really find what we're good at. And then identity is where we put meaning to that. Adolescence, especially middle and late adolescence, is where we stop putting so much attention on what our peers think. We've already somewhat closed what our parents think, and now we're going to close what our friends think. Uh, Close, by that I mean not that it no longer matters, but that we go from what they say to a time where we go, okay, well, what do I think? And this is really what adolescence is all about, is you figure out, okay, who am I? Separate from who he or she is. What does the boyfriend, girlfriend say? What does the teacher say? What do my friends say? Okay, I'll take all that into account, but I'm the one that matters, saying who I am. Something else that we're going to see here is that we really put some meaning to identity in terms of all the pieces. We bring them together and we paint the picture of who we really are. What does it mean to be male or female? What does it mean to be transgender? What does it mean to be our ethnicity? What does it mean to come from this community or that community? What does it mean to be a good student or a good athlete or a good friend, or what does all that mean? And these are questions that we have to answer in late adolescence. I say this is really important. This is essentially important because in adulthood, the adults that don't seem to make it, the adults that seem to have the most problems, are those adults who haven't answered those questions yet. This is what this chapter is really about: is communicating the importance, the essential nature of psychosocial development in adolescence, of that identity. You cannot have a successful relationship with someone else without a certain amount of self-sacrifice. If you, I mean, that may not be something you want to hear, but it's something that's true. And if you are older, you may be nodding your head and agreeing. Well, see, you cannot self-sacrifice if you don't know who you are to self-sacrifice. You're just being a victim then. So that's important. Okay, so let's look also in this chapter at relationships. First of all, parental relationships with adolescents, or adolescents' relationship with their parents. And you know, if you look in the media, you might think, gosh, adolescence is this horrible time and everybody's rebellious and stuff like that. I think most of us, though, we really do navigate these years of adolescence pretty well. And most people have a pretty good relationship with their parents. They know they're loved, and they kind of do their own thing, sure, but they do have that foundation, solid foundation. And if we can roll back to many chapters ago when I talked about attachment, we'll see that those people who, when they were children, when they were especially younger children, were allowed to attach with their loved ones, these are people who can navigate those adolescent years really well. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a parent of an adolescent really struggling in a relationship. My kid doesn't talk to me anymore. They're doing all this stuff and they never tell me anything. And I go, yeah, I know, because when they were infants, you ignored them, you pushed them away, you tried to push them into independence. And that's what happens, because if when we're little, we're pushed away from those people we want to trust, we basically write them off. We'll find somebody else to trust, right? And that may be somebody who really doesn't have our best interest at heart. Peer relationships are really important. Friendships, and probably the friendships that you have that are the strongest are those friendships that you developed in adolescence, or at least they were already there and you develop them further in adolescence, because adolescence is often a time where we start to deal with those kinds of issues that are really important, intimacy and stuff like that. And so for that reason, those friendships are really stronger, because we probably have a deeper level of communication in those relationships. And even peers are, I just turned 54 years old, and I'm looking at, well, I probably shouldn't say that dates this video, but I'm older, and yet those friendships that I still remember are those that were built in adolescence, because those are the folks, I have to admit, who saw me at my worst. So if they're still friends, there are pretty cool people who can do that. Something else that I'll just kind of touch on that you're going to read in this chapter is, well, it has a lot to do with the decisions that adolescents make. We've discussed that a little bit in chapter 15, but this chapter we're going to see socio-emotionally probably the results of a lot of those choices that adolescents make, as far as juvenile delinquency and all. Remember that many things that as adults We may not do a whole lot, but we do them sometimes. But as adolescents, we wouldn't do them, or if we did them, they'd be illegal. Well, so this is kind of an interesting dilemma because we're going to see one of the differences between adolescence and adulthood is certain behaviors are legal if you're an adult and illegal if you're an adolescent. Physically, there isn't a difference. Really, you can think and make, not that you do, but you can make decisions like an adult as an adolescent. You can produce children like adults when you're an adolescent. And some of those things are more difficult, but anyway, I'm not really talking about the physical, I'm just talking about the socio-emotional. So this transitional period is really an interesting time because you're really part adult and part child. You're not all adult, even though it'd be nice to think you were. So let's keep that in mind. And I really can't think of anything else to say about chapter 16, but I hope you've enjoyed our journey through childhood and adolescence. I started this video out saying, consider yourself as an adult and then think back on your childhood and adolescence. And I hope you've enjoyed that journey so that you can see what is it that has made you who you are. And remember also that none of that stuff has to have a hold on you. Okay? As an adult, you really can be independent of the junk from childhood and adolescence. Okay? Remember the good, though. Remember the good. And take care of yourselves. I've enjoyed having you in this class. I pray that you will be blessed and happy and have a great life. And please contact me if you have any questions or comments or just need somebody who believes in you. I hope you have a great life.